listening to Strides and Vibes. Whether you're on a long run, a lunch break, or stretching out with your foam roller, welcome to the podcast all about moving better, living healthier, and vibing higher. I'm your host, Mario Bulks, elite running coach, ultra-endurance athlete, and founder of Healthetica Coaching, coming to you from the trails, tracks, and streets of Gadigal country in Sydney, Australia. Each episode, I'll bring in guests from all walks, from coaches, athletes to world-class performers, as well as doctors and professionals in their fields, to unpack their stories and explore the mindset shifts, science, and practical strategies that help us go the distance in running and in life. So, lace up, tune in, and let's move towards a better you, one stride at a time. Hello. Welcome back. Welcome to the Strides and Vibes podcast. And as you can see, there's two people smiling here today, which makes me really happy when people smile when they're going to talk to me in a minute. For some of you, you might recognize this good-looking young man. His name is Greg Wallace, but he will go and introduce himself. Yeah, I've known Greg, of course, Coast to Kosci, and a few other bits and pieces. I got interested in what he does from a charity perspective as well. He works in leadership, which is something very close to my heart as well. So he's got a vast experience in a lot of things. And last but not least, Greg Wallace is the race director of Coast to Kosci, together with Mickey, our Scottish friend. So yeah, as always, welcome. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast, Greg.
Thank you, Mario. Really good to be here and look forward to a fun discussion. And I must say, I love your jumper. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good. Yeah. It's I love it as well, actually. I wear it a lot, but today was the right thing. And you can see there's a little hat there as well with a pin, and or two pins, actually. So that's pretty good. All right. I ask every guest one question first, always. Greg, what makes you you?
Thanks, Mario. Me, I'm probably the product of all my experiences, upbringing. I'm a country boy and I grew up in small country towns, moved around a bit, and also a lot of time at Byron Bay. So I've got a tiny little bit of hippie in me tucked away. Some people may not see that. But a lot of country town, which gives you a really good understanding of dealing with different people because you're all in there together, perhaps, than some of the larger splits you might see across metropolitan areas. A lot of sport as a kid. I'm a third child, so very competitive as well with that. That also means stubborn. It also means resilience when you're chasing after older kids and trying to compete. And I think it's also the sum of a really good family environment and supporting family environment, and just all those pieces together make me me.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think we were just talking off air about stubbornness. Obviously, when we run longer distances, I mean, we have to be stubborn in life throughout, but it helps if we, and obviously for me, I was obviously reminiscing over the weekend when I wrote the newsletter for my little business, Healthetica Coaching. We have a newsletter that goes out every month, and it was about Mother's Day. And then I wrote a little piece about the influence from my mother, because my parents grew up in the Swiss mountains and they were both the oldest. So funnily enough, you said the third. They were the oldest, and obviously, if you can imagine, in the 50s, they had to be parent, right? They were the third parent, both of them. So they gave me that little bit of drive. I'm the oldest as well, which doesn't make a big difference. My brother was definitely not competitive because the age gap was a bit too high. 4.5 years, and younger there is a bit too much. Anyway, enough about me. I know you've built a bit of a career in terms of leadership and governance and things like that, if I'm correct, when I did a little bit of my research. So how did that come into your life?
Oh, that's very broad. For me, I've been lucky enough to be in, I suppose, good positions in good companies, good corporations with great people. And once you work with great people, you learn so much. You work hard. It doesn't mean it's easy, but you learn a lot, and you also learn a lot about yourself. And particularly in order to get things done in larger organizations, to be able to execute, you've got to be able to work with all people across all different areas. And again, maybe that's that country upbringing that brings that through. So being able to be at fairly senior positions of some large companies and some large portfolios and accountabilities, you learn an awful lot, and you learn a lot about the people around you. That also gives you a natural, I suppose, foray into boards and governance, and whether it's writing board papers, large submissions, approval processes. That's also come through in some of the government work I've done as well. And you need to understand the different lenses that apply from a governance perspective, the risk management that goes with initiatives and proposals, and also how sometimes to get proposals over the line. And there's different ways and means to be able to do those things, whether it's seeding ideas progressively, whether it's a big bang idea of what it is. In addition to that, outside, I suppose, of a standard working career, I've also done a reasonable amount of community work. That's the classic coaching kids at sport, being on committees, footy club, cricket club, all those sorts of aspects. And it gives you that sense of community. So when you bring, I suppose, a lot of experience from a work perspective across different facets, very much general, you add to that the governance lens of seeing how large governance activities operate and what's needed and what's important and why those things are in place, and the risk management, but understanding the community aspect of all those, of how people, the coalition of the willing, want to work in a club. You mesh all that together, and I think that's given me a really good understanding about corporate business management, business growth, and also helping people. And I do like to help businesses as well as help people. So those things have pulled together to sort of get me, whether you say get me to where I am, or if I look back, those facets have been building blocks towards where I am today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know it was a broad question, but sometimes I like the guests to just bring it in the way they feel it makes sense to them, because it's their story, their background. I love that, actually. It's so important, that understanding. And then obviously, and we'll talk later about our magical race, how that comes in, because obviously over a long stretch of 240 Ks, you can't just call one council up and say, mate, there's 50 cars coming through plus 12 vehicles that look after the roadside and do some signage. I can imagine there's a lot that goes into that. And that's definitely interesting for me to know. Whatever you want to give away at a later stage during our conversation. Yeah. You just mentioned sports as well. I mean, obviously there must have been a moment where you thought running might be a handy thing to do. When did you start running? This is not about our running career, but it's always interesting to see when did you start running? Are you a later in life runner, or have you always run?
My answer might surprise you, Mario. Never had any inkling necessarily to be a runner. However, I played footy from when I was 4, cricket from pretty much not much after that, all the way through till my 20s. Interestingly, I was always persistent. I was the one that would chase the ball down. I was the one that would compete. I was the one that other people did too, but I didn't give up. I never gave up on a play, to quote some of the approaches with coaching, and that's whether it's persistence or stubbornness or whatever it is. I remember being in a couple of school cross country teams and things like that as the emergency reserve or the last one called up. Not a lot of fun, didn't necessarily do well. I was athletic, I was fit, all those sorts of things, just running, never saw anything in it. And I think, look, I came to it much later in life, and I was about 40. I stopped sports and all that stuff when I was about 26. Was busy working and I was traveling a lot. Had kids. Got to the age of 40, your kids are starting to get to that sort of 5 to 10 years of age. And I think, quote, I was driving my wife nuts. I think at home, Julie, I was probably not doing much other than just working and being at home. And that narrows your world. And I think I became, whether you call it reclusive or not, but probably arguably depressive or elements around that. And I was looking for something different, I think, to break that shackle. I didn't really know a lot of people in my area, those sorts of things. Someone suggested to me in counselling I should take up running, and that was because I couldn't commit to team sports, with travel, different locations. I laughed at them. Then about a couple of weeks later, I did a 1.5 K run up to the local park and back. Okay, thought that was pretty impressive. Started doing, then that 3K became a couple of laps of that same course. And then I was doing, I think, 10K pretty comfortably. And I remember entering a city to surf, and in hindsight now, I probably would have done it, but I was pretty sick at the time, to the extent I took a Friday off work because I was crook, which days off work for me for illness are like rare as hen's teeth. And then it didn't seem the right thing to do. And I'm a big person about the right thing to do. It didn't seem right to take the Friday off, but then could I drag myself out of bed to run on the Sunday? So I didn't do it. And then I went, okay, what's next? What could I do? And Sydney Half was around the corner, or the Blackmores Half, I should say. And it was I'd done, I think, 7K as training runs pretty comfortably. So I thought I'd enter that. I was pretty pumped entering that. I was good doing a half. Spoke to my neighbour 2 doors down, I hadn't seen for a while. He was doing his marathon as the first thing, big thing for him. Made me feel pretty insignificant. I remember doing that, and I think it's 2 hours 8. The memory sticks, but God, my feet hurt. But so for me, it was about 40 years of age. That's when I really started running and building.
Wow.
However, if I look back, it's interesting with footy pre-season training. I remember a few times doing like laps and stuff at racecourse in Wagga, funny enough, and sort of struggling the first lap or the first half out, sort of hanging on at the back, but then was able to peel off a great second half comfortably. And I think that got back to the persistence. And I probably found, if I look back, probably had a pretty good motor. That doesn't mean a sprinting motor. That means I can keep going. And that was interesting. So I got into running at the age of 40, did a couple of marathons, and then heard about this event in the Blue Mountains, which was the North Face 100 at the time, which had just not long started. I think it was this, I entered it, I think it might have been the 3rd year of it. And Mickey had done, I think, the first one or first 2. And I actually met Mickey through locally just starting to run. So that sounds pretty interesting. He talked to me about being at the bottom of terrace ladders for a while. And I thought that's something to go and do. And I went, yeah, and I entered the old GNW 100 as my first event, right? Off the back of hearing about the old North Face 100. And I did that event, and it actually taught me a lot. It really made me realize at night, I think I finished about 11 o'clock at night, but being in the Wattigans at, I don't know, middle of winter, dark, and I did about 15K on my own through trails and back down on the main road. And that's a course where you have to pretty much navigate. It's not well marked. And that's important. It's deliberately that way. So you have to test yourself. And I found how calm and rational I was. Whereas if you'd said 3 months ago, we'll put you out in the middle of the Wattigans at night and just a track, and you've got to turn left down a ridge in 5K, I'd been freaking out. So I learnt a lot about myself. I came back, I finished that night, I had a beer, as you do, got in the car, my wife was driving, asked her to turn around about 1 kilometre down the road. I wanted to go back and throw the medal at the organisers, the Terrible Trotters.
No way.
I thought, what a stupid event. It's not a run, it's a mountain goat course. It's scrambling over clambering, all that sort of stuff. And then, fair enough, as we all do, 2 days later was searching for the next thing. So running came late in life, but probably as a consequence of a lot of other things earlier in my life.
Awesome. That'll bring me into the next question, actually. This is a very good point. I mean, I'm a late in life runner myself. I started at 38 and I absolutely detested running for 38 years of my life. So I've only loved running for not even 20. But I love it 3 times as much as any normal person now. So I'm making up for it in a fast-forward version. Funnily enough, in a few days, we'll actually have UTA 100 weekend. The podcast won't come out beforehand due to me actually being quite occupied this week with my runners, and it freaks me out more. I had one of my runners ask me today how I'm feeling. I'm like, I'm more nervous with all the runners running. I'm less nervous when I'm running. So, but anyway, again, enough about me. The thing is, right, and I'm big on leadership, and what you said earlier on just resonates with me. You know, if you're in a good company, it doesn't matter. You still have to work hard. You're in a good company with good leaders, you feel safe, right? That's what I heard you say. Yes, it was hard. I learned a lot, but you were definitely in a safe environment. That's what I heard. And that's what good businesses do. Good leaders do this. Then you can actually push the individual and the employee. That's my opinion. Isn't always the case. I've not always been that lucky, but that's okay. I've learned my own way. So do ultras, we're now in the ultra sphere. You've run your ultras. Teach leadership, or do they reveal it? What's your take?
I'll go both ways, Mario. They teach leadership because you need to take positions on certain things, which is, first of all, on doing the event, how you coordinate, build it like a mini project, your plan to execute, your training plan to prep yourself, what resources you need, when you're going to need it, have you got all your stuff together, is it tested so all your stuff pulls together. So some ways you could argue, yes, that's a degree of leadership. And also another part important of leadership is to be able to listen, is take advice from those around you. So when you're doing ultras with support crew, and assumes you have good support crew and experienced support crew, and perhaps Coast to Kosci is a really good example of this, is very much at the start, you're making sure, are your crew ready? Have they got everything together? And you let the event unfold and follow your plan, and your plan will adapt, because as we know, the longer things go, more things can go wrong. Progressively, at some point, I don't know what the magical point is, that whether you call it power or not, shifts. And you need to be able to listen to your crew. Yes, you have dialogue and or be told by your crew what to do, when to do it, and that gets you to the end point. And if you have people you trust who are knowledgeable and are making smart decisions for you, then that's also an important part of a leader. Is and one of the phrases I use a lot with my teams is, I work for you, because I'm here to approve things, I'm here to remove barriers, I'm here to provide direction, to answer issues, prioritize or deal with challenges you've got as a team member. So they do show leadership, but also reveals leadership to a degree with that. So I do think it's both, Mario.
I like that. I really do, because you're the leader until you start, until you're on the start line. You're the leader, and then you hand that baton over.
Yeah.
I love that. It's obvious, but I've never actually thought about that.
And that probably came
in businesses, right? I wonder, and I don't know how many million people listen to this, but true leaders are obviously, like you said, they're servants. Absolutely. That's what I always saw myself when I had a leadership role and I had people working for me, always. As soon as you go to a leadership role, you don't do your job anymore you were good at, right? Your little technical thing, and you were fantastic at it. And luckily, someone didn't pigeonhole you. They saw something else in you. Now you're the leader. If you're the best draftsman in the world, or the best mechanical engineer, the best electrical engineer, nobody cares. Nobody cares. How good are you leading? Because the other people are now in the team doing your little electrical engineering and your mechanical engineering and your draftsman stuff. So that's just my experience, right? But how many true leaders actually hand over the baton and say, hey, this is your trot? I had one person in my whole life who's done that to me. A leader says, Mario, you lead this project and I am part of your team.
That's interesting, Mario. You delegate, you never abdicate. So by that is you also give people freedom. You test people. And sometimes, yes, the best job is always the one you do yourself. However, they'll bring different insights, different perspectives. And if the job still gets being done, and maybe it's slightly different to the way you do it, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And interestingly, with your background from multiple nations, one good point about traveling is you see things done differently overseas. Doesn't mean they're wrong. They're just different approaches. They still get the same outcome. So that ability to, as a leader, to be able to, yes, direct, make firm and clear decision-making and provide clarity is really important. But in a lot of cases, it is making sure people understand what their role is, what they have to deliver, what resources they've got and how they're remunerated, and let them go, but make sure they're supported. You still, and very much clearly, have a hands-on to the degree you need to with whatever it is, and make sure you get the right reporting signals on progress, risk management, all those attributes. But otherwise, we'd all be companies of one. You need people, and you got to let them perform. And if you can use your experience and guidance to direct them and support them to the right way, and that's cultivating them, that's fantastic. There's a little quote from every now and then. And it's a good reminder to me to make sure I do it too, it's a quote from Gandhi, which is, there go my people, I must follow them, for I am their leader, or words to that effect. And it just reflects that, while you need to set the direction, you need to make sure you've got people on board. There's a clear direction across all of you, and you're supporting and guiding them there.
Perfect. Exactly. No, I love this stuff. This is where, this is how giving, handing over is the hardest thing for many people, especially for us stubborn folk. The problem I have, right, and this is unique to me now, I'm not generalizing this. When I was traveling for over 20 years as a service engineer installing machinery, the problem is I was the only one who knew or who should know how to operate this bloody thing. The only one who could teach the people. So you're not used to ringing a friend or having a 50-50 or you just didn't have that. So coming from that background is very hard to then say, okay, I just trust others to fix. But I've done it, not a problem. It took me a while, but very good point. You can lead from the back as well, and bringing that back into what we try and do when we run, let's say, 240 kilometers, of course, So in both the business side and the ultra side, people hit difficult moments, okay? So from your experience now, and I'm after your experience here, because I always want people to learn something when they listen to my podcast, have a good laugh, have a good time, make their drive to work a little bit easier or their flight or whatever. But at the end of the day, what keeps people moving forward in business and in an ultra? What's your experience?
First is having a clear intent and outcome or objective. I know for me personally in an ultra, number one goal is always to finish. Second goal is a stretch time. Third goal is probably a normal target time. All right. And then, but making sure you finish, but you are rational with your approach. And obviously, if your preparation is underdone, you don't have your shit together, you're not going to hit those metrics. So you have to be rational, but you've got to push yourself with that as well. I think there's a couple of elements which can also apply in business, and I do try to have fun at work as well as much as you can. It's got to be enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
First thing is always be in good spirits. And ultra, it makes a massive difference. It probably took me a few years to learn that. I was always really serious about executing and have I got this right, and have I got my shoes worn into the right level? Have I got all my stuff together and in snap lock bags, labeled clearly, or precision to the extent of being anal with it. But the first thing is you've got to be in good spirits. The longer you can be in good spirits, it makes such a difference. You take so much more in your environment. Your crews appreciate you so much more. The volunteers appreciate you so much more. And it makes such a difference. So one aspect is very much being in good spirits. The second piece is being able to adapt what gets thrown at you. We talked about the longer things go wrong. And that could be anything from a problem with the crew vehicle, something is misplaced, something got left behind. And it's interesting how I think one thing that Ultras has taught me is perspective around things. So if something's lost early on or there's an issue, I'd probably struggle with my head or it'll frustrate the hell out of me. Stuff just happens and you've got to be able to deal with it, much as it does in life. And I think it's a really good element. It keeps perspective that things aren't quite working right. So what are you going to do about it? If you're 20K from a checkpoint, it's up to you to sort it out. You can slow down, you can adapt, you can work out what it is. Those elements, I think, combined, the next piece would be about your head and where your head is at. And it's so often that as soon as your head goes, which can be a relationship between the other two aspects I mentioned, it's really hard to get it back. And using Kosci as an example, or this is applicable to many other events.
That's it for this episode, folks. As we wrap up, I want to honor the traditional custodians of the land I'm recording on and pay my respects to elders past and present. May we continue to listen, learn, and tread lightly wherever we run. If today's episode sparked something in you, hit that share button, leave a review, or drop a comment on Spotify or YouTube. Every little bit helps keep the momentum going. Or even if you've got a question, feedback, or just want to say hi, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep moving, stay curious, and never forget, showing up is the hardest and bravest stride of all.